When you think of New York City, what's the first image that really pops into your mind? For so many of us, it's that iconic skyline, but it's far more than just a collection of towering buildings, isn't it? It's kind of a living monument to ambition, constant innovation, and centuries of history all etched against the sky.
It really is.
Today, we're going to take a deep dive into how that very skyline came to be.
It's truly remarkable. I mean, New York City's architectural history tells such a profound story.
Yeah.
This rich tapestry of styles, groundbreaking innovation, and just relentless ambition.
Yeah.
It's not just about the buildings themselves. It vividly recounts the narrative of American growth, incredible diversity, and, well, sheer creativity, quite literally from the ground up.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive is to explore exactly that, how the city's skyline acts as this living story written in stone, steel, and glass. We'll trace its evolution from its humble beginnings as a small Dutch settlement all the way to its soaring modern marvels. We've got some fascinating sources to guide us through NYC's incredible architectural journey.
Sounds great. Where do we start?
So let's cast our minds back, way back to the very beginning. Picture New York in the early 1600s, long before it was the bustling metropolis we know. It was then the modest Dutch settlement of New Amsterdam.
Right. And that early architecture, it vividly reflected Dutch building traditions, the practical functional structures.
Practical being the key word.
Very much so. It embodied the pragmatic, mercantile spirit of a young trading post where, efficiency often trumps grandiosity. We're talking about buildings constructed primarily with bricks and those very characteristic, steeply pitched roofs.
Like you see in old paintings of Amsterdam almost.
Exactly. The ones with the two slopes on each side, sort of like the barn roof, designed to shed snow and rain efficiently. These were simple structures, often with gable ends facing the street and wooden shutters. Pretty basic, really.
It's hard to even imagine that skyline. So were these structures mainly about practicality, given a challenging new environment, or was there also a sense of making a statement, however small, for the new settlement?
Primarily practicality, which is a key insight into early colonial life, really. They weren't trying to emulate grand European capitals, not at that stage.
Makes sense.
What's fascinating is that the oldest surviving structure in NYC, the Wyckoff House in Brooklyn, it dates back to circa 1652.
Wow, still standing.
It gives us this tangible link to this initial, very pragmatic period. It shows exactly those fieldstone walls and narrow, tall facades typical of the era.
Okay, so as the city shed its colonial skin post-revolution and embraced its new identity as part of the American Republic, its buildings began to reflect that shift, right? Yeah. What styles started to dominate then?
Absolutely. This is when Georgian and federal architecture really took hold. It signaled a desire for more formal, established aesthetics.
A bit more polish.
Exactly. The emphasis here shifted to strong symmetry, robust brick construction, and classical details, directly influenced by what was popular in England and, of course, the burgeoning style of the early United States. It was about projecting stability and Republican ideals.
So instead of those practical Dutch homes, you start imagining buildings with elegant brick facades, those beautiful fan-light windows.
The semicircular ones above the doors.
Right. Allowing light into the entryway while maintaining privacy, and decorative cornices running along the roof lines. Much more stately, designed to impress a bit more.
Precisely. A perfect example of this shift is Hamilton Grange, built in 1802 up in Harlem.
Alexander Hamilton's place.
The very same. And when you see it, you immediately recognize that classical influence. Yeah. It's a clear departure from the earlier Dutch simplicity. It really embodies the aspiration of the young nation.
Okay, so as the 19th century rolled on, New York City was industrializing, expanding rapidly northward. This period saw a true explosion of styles that would define much of the city's residential landscape. What were some of these new influences coming in?
Oh, this era was a rich architectural buffet. Just so much going on. We saw the Greek revival drawing inspiration directly from classical Greek temples.
Right, with the big columns.
Exactly, featuring those grand, often multi-story columned porticos that spoke of civic virtue and democracy. Then, the dramatic Gothic revival emerged.
A very different feel.
Totally. Characterized by pointed arches, intricate stained glass, and formidable stone exteriors, often used for churches and universities, aiming for that sense of spiritual uplift, And we also saw the more ornate Italian and Second Empire styles, which became, extensively used in the city's rapidly multiplying row houses and stately mansions. Lots of detail there.
And this is where something truly iconic for New York emerged, the brownstone townhouse. By the mid-19th century, these became such a defining feature of neighborhoods like Harlem, Brooklyn, the Upper West Side.
Everywhere, yeah.
What made brownstones so prevalent and enduringly recognizable?
Well, brownstones, typically built with that reddish-brown sandstone, offered a kind of middle ground between grand mansions and simpler tenements.
Right.
Their popularity surged partly because of new courting techniques that made the stone more affordable, combined with the need for rapid housing for the city's growing middle class.
So speed and cost were factors.
Definitely. They were relatively quick to build and offered a sense of respectable uniformity. And speaking of enduring examples from that general period, though of different style, the majestic Trinity Church, built in 1846 by Richard Upjohn.
Downtown, right.
That's the one. And the awe-inspiring St. Patrick's Cathedral, completed in 1879 by James Renwick Jr., they really stand out as pinnacles of that dramatic Gothic revival style. Just stunning.
Now, for a truly revolutionary period, one that forever changed our perception of what a city could be, the skyscraper age.
Ah, yeah.
The late 19th century saw the invention of steel frame construction and, crucially, the practical elevator. These two innovations didn't just change architecture. They fundamentally transformed New York's economy, its population density, and of course, its silhouette.
Indeed. It's fascinating how architectural styles rapidly adapted to these new technologies. The Beaux-Arts style, popular from the 1890s to the 1920s, emerged.
Very grand.
Oh, extremely. Characterized by its grand and formal designs with classical columns, sculptures, rich ornamentation, really aiming for a sense of monumental dignity and opulence. It drew heavily from French academic architecture.
Sure.
Simultaneously, you had the influence of the Chicago School's innovations. They emphasized clear vertical lines and expansive windows, really pushing the envelope for how tall and functional a building could be. That influenced the early skyscrapers, too.
So when we talk about early skyscrapers, you have to picture the Flatiron Building, completed in 1902. Just iconic for its unique triangular shape. It wasn't just tall for its time, it famously used its shape to defy traditional city blocks, becoming an immediate landmark. People were fascinated by it.
And of course, the Woolworth Building, finished in 1913, was a true marvel. For a time, it stood as the tallest building in the world.
Incredible.
Often called the Cathedral of Commerce for its Gothic revival detailing, it managed to blend that sort of old world grandeur with new world height.
And as a prime example of that Beaux-Arts grandeur blending function with breathtaking artistry, you absolutely can't forget Grand Central Terminal.
Oh, never.
Also completed in 1913, it's a true masterpiece, demonstrating how even a, transportation hub could be designed with such monumental civic pride.
The cathedral movement, really.
Exactly. Moving into the Roaring '20s, the Art Deco movement truly revolutionized New York's skyline, giving it that distinct, glamorous edge we still associate with it. What characterized this visually striking style?
Art Deco. It's instantly recognizable, isn't it? For its geometric patterns, those characteristic setbacks where the building steps back from the street at certain heights.
Which had zoning reasons too, right? Letting light down.
Precisely. The 1916 zoning resolution played a huge role. But aesthetically, it led to these dynamic forms. Plus soaring spires and incredibly luxurious, often exotic interiors. This was also the period of that intense, competitive race to build the tallest building on Earth. It wasn't just about commerce. It was civic pride, technological bravado.
Keeping up with the Joneses' skyscraper style.
Exactly, reflecting the unbridled optimism and rapid economic growth of the era before the crash.
And what came out of that incredible race? Well, iconic examples like the Chrysler Building, completed in 1930.
It's beautiful.
With its distinctive silver spire and amazing automotive motifs like the eagle gargoyles modeled after hood ornaments, it's instantly recognizable and truly celebrates the machine age.
Then, just a year later, in 1931, defying the onset of the Great Depression, the Empire State Building rose.
An icon of icons.
It quickly became a global symbol of American ambition and resilience. And its speed of construction, taking only about 13 months, was almost as famous as its height. It truly defined the city's vertical aspirations, even in challenging times.
And let's not forget 30 Rockefeller Plaza, finished in 1933. It's a central part of Rockefeller Center's truly grand urban design.
Right, Rockefeller Center is key. It's almost a city within a city, demonstrating a different kind of ambition. coordinated urban planning on a massive scale, not just a single tower.
Okay, so after World War II, architecture in New York took a very different turn, didn't it? Shifting dramatically towards functionality and simplicity. This was the era of the international style and modernism. What drove this stark aesthetic change?
Well, this movement, heavily influenced by European modernists like Le Corbusier and Mies van der Rohe, was partly a philosophical statement, almost a rejection of the perceived excesses and ornamentation of earlier styles like Beaux-Arts and Art Deco.
Like a cleansing palette.
Sort of, yeah. The materials of choice became glass, steel, and concrete, creating this stark, minimalist aesthetic. It wasn't just about clean lines, it was about purity of form and functional efficiency, reflecting a new, maybe more pragmatic worldview after the war, aiming for universal design principles.
That's a fascinating shift in philosophy. So when we picture this, what are the definitive structures that embody this streamlined, almost unadorned approach?
The Seagram building, definitely. Completed in 1958, designed by Mies van der Rohe himself, along with Philip Johnson.
Classic.
Its bronze and glass curtain wall is just a striking example of that minimalist aesthetic. It really set a new standard for corporate architecture for decades. And a crucial piece of this area, showcasing international collaboration through a distinctly modernist aesthetic, is the United Nations headquarters, completed in 1952.
Right, on the East River.
Its sleek, towering slab design embodies those forward-looking ideals of global cooperation. Very symbolic.
Okay, so then by the 1980s, maybe into the 2000s, there was a clear reaction against modernism's perceived austerity, right? Architects started reintroducing historical references, colors, more playful forms. This was the dawn of postmodernism, alongside a period of significant urban renewal.
That's right. What's fascinating here is how postmodern buildings often combine traditional motifs like columns or pediments, but with a contemporary design sensibility. Sometimes even with a sense of irony or wit.
A bit cheeky, almost.
Sometimes, yeah. It was about breaking the perceived rigid rules of modernism and allowing for more individual expression. And simultaneously, New York saw new urban planning policies aimed specifically at revitalizing neighborhoods and, importantly, preserving its incredibly rich collection of historic buildings. There was a growing recognition of the value of the past.
A prime example that generated quite a stir, I remember, is the AT&T building, completed in 1984, now known as the Sony Tower.
Oh yeah, the Chippendale top.
Designed by Philip Johnson, who ironically also worked on the Seagram building. It's famous for that strikingly classical, almost furniture-like top, a direct challenge to modernist dogma.
It really was a statement piece. And on a much larger, more comprehensive scale, the massive Times Square redevelopment in the 1990s dramatically transformed one of the city's most iconic, if somewhat gritty at the time, districts.
A huge undertaking.
Huge. It was a complex blend of preservation, new construction, and a conscious effort to reclaim public space, marking a new approach to urban revitalization. Love it or hate it, it changed Times Square forever.
Okay, bringing us right up to the present day, the 21st century in New York. It seems defined by innovation, a major push for green building, and the emergence of what we call starchitects,
Right.
renowned global architects designing truly distinctive, often sculptural structures. What are the key trends shaping today's skyline?
Well, current trends heavily feature sustainability. That's a big one. You see elements like green roofs, LED certification becoming all standard for major projects.
Lady being...
Leadership in energy and environmental design. It's a rating system. So a strong focus on energy efficiency, a crucial response to climate change, obviously.
Makes sense.
We also see a lot of tech-driven design. This allows for complex, often fluid or crystalline forms, those towering glass structures, all made possible by advanced computer-aided design and really sophisticated engineering. It's about blending aesthetics with environmental responsibility, or at least trying to.
So what does this all mean for the skyline today? One World Trade Center, completed in 2014, is obviously a powerful symbol of resilience.
Absolutely.
Standing as the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere, a beacon in the renewed Lower Manhattan cityscape.
But it's not just about height anymore, which is interesting. It's also about experiential urban design. Other notable projects include the Vessel, that sculptural staircase in Hudson Yards, completed in 2019.
Which has had its own controversies, but visually striking.
Very much so. Designed purely for public interaction and views. And then there's the High Line, completed in phases between 2009 and 2019.
Which everyone loves.
Right. Brilliantly transforming an old elevated railway into this incredibly popular public park. A fantastic example of adaptive reuse.
Yeah.
And we also have newer projects like The Shed and Little Island, representing entirely new approaches to cultural spaces and urban parks, demonstrating a city really focused on livability and community, not just commerce.
What an incredible journey we've taken, really, through New York City's architectural timeline, from its humble Dutch colonial beginnings to its absolutely jaw-dropping contemporary structures that push the boundaries of design and engineering.
It really covers so much ground. And if we consider the broader picture, New York's architectural history truly is a mirror of its growth, its incredible diversity, and its constant restless reinvention.
That's a great way to put it.
The city skyline isn't just a collection of buildings, it's a profound testament to its ongoing story. Each layer reflects a different ambition, a different challenge, a different dream. It's all there.
So what does this all mean for you, listening? Well, the next time you gaze upon the skyline of New York, or indeed any city you find yourself in, try to see it not just as static structures, but as a living story. Written in stone, steel, and glass, observe how different eras, ambitions, and innovations are visibly layered, building upon each other, literally shaping the urban landscape around you. It's a silent, powerful narrative just waiting to be read.